Okay, good morning, everybody, and welcome to another session of Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. I'm Sarah, and I will be your host today. And hi, everybody. Okay, good morning, everybody. I got the link to YouTube going on there too. Sorry about that. So for those of you that don't know, Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants is all about bringing science, adventure, and conservation to the classroom. And so today we have a really awesome guest, Sophie Hollingsworth. And before I introduce her, I'd like to go around and just say hey to our classrooms and give them a chance to give a shout out. So we have classrooms, we have around 200 students from across North America joining us today throughout the United States and Canada. So I will go to Mr. Drezik's classroom first. We have 54 students from the US. If you guys want to say, hey, good morning. Oops, you guys got to unmute yourself.
Hey, good morning. We're here from Lakeshore High School in Angola, New York. So we have some students with us live and then others tuning in virtually. So we're very excited for World Water Day today and to connect and learn with all of you.
Awesome. Good to connect. Thank you, Mr. Drezik. And then we also have a grade 5 class from Sarnia, Canada. I'm also coming out of Canada, so hello, everybody. If you want to say hello, good morning, grade 5s. Oh, no, they're still muted. It's okay, they're muted there. And hello, everybody. Even though we can't hear you, we can see you.
Hi.
And then we also have a group of grade 5s, lots of grade 5s today from Virginia Beach, USA. If you guys want to say hello, your mic's muted. I don't think I can unmute on my end. Hello, everybody. Okay, awesome. So then without further ado, we might have another couple classrooms joining in. I'd like to introduce the reason we're all here. So we have a special guest today, Sophie Hollingsworth, and Sophie is a former ballerina turned award-winning explorer and water advocate. So Sophie is a UN Youth Delegate, Fulbright Scholar, and the 2017 New Explorer of the Year. And Sophie holds a 200-ton captain's license. And at the time of certification, she was the youngest female to ever obtain this rank. And so she's also the founder of Aqua Aid International, and Sophie works with some of Central America and Sub-Saharan Africa's most remote villages, establishing sustainable sources of clean drinking water. And Sophie hopes to use exploration and storytelling to inspire action and to create and celebrate a more sustainable future. So Sophie, without further ado, you can take it away.
Thank you so much. Well, good morning, everybody. So, as was just said, my name is Captain Sophie. I am a water advocate and an explorer, and I am super excited to be joining you guys this evening, or your morning, my evening, from Sydney, Australia. And so March 22nd, World Water Day, is a really exciting day for me because it's the one day of the year where everybody all around the world gets to celebrate my favorite thing, which is water. So I'm the founder of an organization called Aqua Aid International, and we help people get access to clean drinking water in some of the most remote corners of the world. So water is something that I think most of us really take for granted. It's really easy. We go to the tap, turn it on, and have a glass of water. But fresh water is crucial for human society, not just for drinking, but for farming, to grow our food, for washing so we don't stink, and pretty much everything that, we need comes from water initially. So whether it's our clothes, whether the pencil that you guys are using in class, like water is needed to make everything. But even though it's so important, we often take it for granted. So before we delve deeper into water, I thought it'd be good to just take a look at where it really comes from. So I'm going to try to do this screen share thing. I might need a hand really quick on how to do that.
Sure. Just make sure to click the green button and to click full.
Okay, there we go. Okay.
Here's my face.
All right, perfect. Okay, so obviously, if we're looking from the outside in, it looks like we have a lot of fresh water in the world. But in reality, only about less 2 or 3% of the water is actually fit for human consumption. So 98% of all of our water on the earth is salty. So of that remaining, 2 to 3% that's fresh, very little of it we can actually drink. So a lot of it is stored in snow and ice. The rest is deep, deep, deep in the groundwater below the surface of the land, which leaves less than 1% accessible for human use. So all of this water that we have functions in this closed system that's called the water cycle. And it's sort of cool because there's no water that can come in, there's no water that can come out. It's entirely finite. But this means that the water that we have was here hundreds of thousands of years ago. So I like to think of this as it's sort of possible that we are drinking what was once dinosaur pee. So there's a lot of challenges regarding water worldwide, but today I'll be talking about water for drinking. So for the past few hundred years, every year has seen a decline in the number of people without access to water. But that's no longer the case. Water is becoming scarce. Just under 1 billion people worldwide don't have access to clean drinking water. Now, I know that number is super hard to conceptualize, so let's pretend your classroom sort of represent the global community. And this would mean that 1 in 8 of you don't have access to clean water. So let's take a minute to see how many of your friends in class don't have clean water. So if your classrooms, when I was in school, our average class size was about 20. So that would mean about 3 of us wouldn't have access to clean drinking water. So yeah, just take a minute to figure out how many of you guys don't have access to clean water. So if it's 1 in 8, that one person, they would be drinking the water that's on the left of your screen, that murky one. And I mean, I don't know about you, but I wouldn't want to drink it. It's full of dirt, nasty bacteria. There's probably a few bugs ground up in there, all sorts of things that'll make you sick. It's pretty crazy, right? And if we do nothing about this, these drinking water shortages that we're facing will only worsen. 15 years from now, 2 billion people will live in regions of severe water scarcity. So now, once you've figured out how many of your friends from that 1 in 8 don't have access to clean water, imagine in 15 years, it will double. Pretty crazy. So a lot of people ask me how I got interested in water, and I think it really boils down to an insatiable curiosity and a fear of missing out. So as a young girl, I devoured articles in National Geographic about deforestation and tribes disappearing at alarming rates. And I was mesmerized of photos of the Amazon and cultures whose names I couldn't begin to pronounce. And I remember feeling this immense sense of urgency, along with the realization that, as young people, we could be a part of one of the last generations to live in a world where such places even exist. So I knew pretty early on that if I wanted to see these remote places in jungles or in the desert before they disappeared, I was going to have to act fast. But I was just a teenager and my family didn't have much money, so I set off to get a job where I could see the world and save money to go to college. So when I was 16, I started working as a deckhand on a private yacht off the coast of Panama. I was basically a glorified janitor, dreaming of someday becoming the boat's captain. Now, during this time when I was working, I met this single father in a dugout canoe with 2 little girls. They paddled up to the back of the yacht and they were looking to trade coconuts for fishing hooks. So I got to talking to these 2 little girls who told me that they were super excited to be starting school. And I was curious, why this was the first time they were starting school, because they looked older than the age that you or I might have started kindergarten. And the girls told me that there was this new underwater pipeline supplying their home island with clean drinking water. So they no longer had to spend all day paddling back to the mainland to collect water, which allowed them time to actually go to school, which previously they were just totally busy all day collecting water. So I was shocked by this because water was something I'd never really thought about. I always had water when I wanted it. And not only did it already come out of the tap, but the water was clean and it didn't make me sick, which is something that not everyone is so lucky to have. So, shocked by this, I started researching the world water crisis and found out that there were not many water companies working with really remote communities like the ones I met those two young girls in, which I thought was super bizarre because often that's where the most need was. So, to make a long story short, I was determined to help bring access to clean drinking water to the communities that other companies, had written off as too remote. And by too remote, I'm saying that in quotes. I mean places that take at least 3 days of hiking, horseback riding, and paddling in dugout canoes to get to from any sort of main road access. It's sort of like this quintessential pith-helmeted adventure, coupled with attempts to build a more sustainable future. Now, initially, almost everyone around me told me my idea to help these villages get access to clean water wasn't possible. I was too young, I'm female, I was still in high school, and I didn't have the experience. All of these things that people kept telling me, they were valid statements, but I didn't see them as limiting factors. I believed the idea was possible and then worked night and day to make my dream a reality. Hence, AquaAid International was born. I was 18 years old and my mission was really simple. Water for all, no exceptions. So, in 2012, I first traveled to the remote village of Caraola in the southern autonomous region of Nicaragua, which is somewhat represented by that red star on the screen right in the middle of Nicaragua. So just to the north, we've got the rest of Central America, and south of us would be Costa Rica, Panama, then South America. So from the capital of Managua, which is off to the left on the screen, the journey took about 3 days to get to the village. Now, the first day was an expedition truck, bouncing around on roads with elephant-sized potholes. Day and a half on horseback and a half day in a canoe, all topped off with a final 3-hour trek just to get to this one village with about 400 people that we were going to collaborate with to try and help get them access to clean drinking water. So I grew up in southern Florida with a single mom, and we vacationed in places like North Carolina and Chicago. Expedition travel was not a part of my upbringing. So I learned a lot on my first trip to Nicaragua for AquaAid. My first night outside of the capital, so just camping, not in a hotel, we stayed in this thatched hut that was divided in half. One half was for humans, the other half was for the animals, and I left my jeans hanging over my backpack. The next morning, I woke up to this symphony of roosters and cows ready to be milked and babies crying, and I put on my jeans. Shortly thereafter, I realized that fire ants had taken up residence in my jeans overnight, and I was about to start a 12-hour horseback ride with ants literally in my pants. I now shake out all of my clothes before putting them on. So, after these 3 days, when we finally arrived in the village of Caraola, we met with the community, and most importantly, we listened to their goals for water and sanitation development. What started out as helping one small village get access to clean water through household-based water filtration turned into a company that works with communities around the world to design water filtration solutions, all with materials made from around communities, so that the filtration solutions can be sustainable for generations to come. AquaAid has since provided over 1,000 people with access to clean drinking water. We've installed water art installations in schools around the world and taught thousands of kids about the importance of water in the environment. So some of you might be thinking, yeah, I see, water's important. We need to do more to conserve water, but I don't live in a remote village or in Nicaragua. I live in a big city in America or Canada. I have access to water. But these water security challenges are not just happening in the most remote corners of the earth. And you don't have to be an explorer to find them. This is Cape Town in South Africa. It's a cosmopolitan developed city with nearly 4 million people. But Cape Town is about to run out of water. It's a problem common to the remote villages I work with, but rare with the wealthy cities. The water shortages in Cape Town are so bad that the government is limiting people's water intake to 13 gallons per day. Now, I know when you see those gallon-sized jugs of water at the grocery store, that may seem like a lot, having 13 of them. But in reality, the average American uses over 100 gallons per day. So having 13 gallons is not very many at all. So now is when I'm going to switch gears here a little bit, because I believe a really important part. How do I stop screen share? There we go. I believe a really, really important part of knowing about a problem such as the global water shortage is having the efficacy to do something about it. So I don't know about you, but when I think of all of the problems facing the earth, whether it's access to water, rhinos going extinct, climate change, sometimes I get a little overwhelmed by thinking about the immensity of all these problems and think, how can, I at the age of 23 or any young person do anything to make a difference? And I think this is all compounded by the fact that the media, people around me, they say that as young people, we are sort of clueless as to the real ways of the world. Now, you guys can raise your hands and I can sort of see a little bit. How many of you have been told something along the lines of, oh, don't worry, that's something for the adults to sort out? Like these big global challenges. Oh yeah, okay, so I see lots of hands going up. Yes, so I don't mean to be rude, but they don't seem to be doing a particularly spectacular job. And don't get me wrong, there are countless adults around the world who work tirelessly to help create a better future, just like your teachers. But at the rate we're going, it's just not enough. We young people need to help them out, no matter your age. Because yes, as young people, we have inherited some of the world's most daunting challenges. And every day that we're not acting to help solve these problems, we are sort of contributing to them. But the cool part about these global problems is that because we're causing them, we can also fix them. So my point in telling you all about this is to encourage each and every one of you to find and act on your passions. Maybe like me, it's water, which would be super cool and I'd be excited. And maybe not. That's cool too. I mean, maybe your passion is protecting the lions or advancing renewable technologies. Whatever your thing is to help create a more sustainable future, I encourage you to act on it, no matter your age, because it's everyone's job to protect the planet. All right. Do you guys have any questions?
Awesome talk, Sophie. What a great message. So yeah, now we can go and do questions for everybody. So we'll go to every classroom once, and then we're also live on YouTube. So I just want to remind everybody that you can type a question in the YouTube chat and I can make sure to get that to Sophie. So why don't we start going to classroom? So we'll start with Mr. Drezik's classroom. If you guys want to come up and ask Sophie a question and unmute your mic, because I think it's you're in control of that, you guys totally can.
All right. Yeah, we have a student coming up. Can you hear us?
Yes.
Yep.
Awesome.
Okay. Yeah, Ken is going to come up and ask a question. Come right up here to the camera so they can see you. Hey, Rare.
Why is Cape Town running out of water?
So a lot of people are trying to figure why Cape Town is running out of water. It has to do with climate change, a growing population, and a growing middle class. So the way Cape Town is in South Africa is currently sort of set up for water is different to the way that climate change is affecting rainfall patterns. And so you've got that's one reason. The second reason is there's a growing middle class in Cape Town, which is a great thing. But it also means that you have people that were once using maybe 20 gallons of water a day are now looking to use even more gallons a day, which is great, but Cape Town isn't really ready for it yet. And then the final reason is just we're using water insustainably, and there's just simply not enough for our consumption there. So there's really technical papers you guys can, I'm sure, research if you'd like. That was like the offhand quick version. But yeah, next, any other?
Yes, so we have Miss Jenko's class that popped in late. They are coming in from Toronto, Canada. And if you guys want to come up, I can unmute your mic and you guys can ask your questions. Actually, it might be muted on your end. Can you guys make sure the mic's not muted on your end there?
Thank you.
Yeah. Awesome.
Okay, how much water does Cape Town have left?
Well, they have day 0, which is when they're expected to run out of water. And that was beginning of April. That has recently been pushed back to, I want to say, June or July. So they've been doing a really great job of rationing their water and giving them a little bit more time to play with, to figure out a more sustainable solution. So hopefully they won't get to the point where they run out.
Yeah, lots of questions about Cape Town today. Just the fact that it's so hard to fathom that such a popular destination is in such a dire state. So
right.
Pretty shocking. And we will go to Miss or Mr. Lumley's class from Sarnia, Canada. If you guys want to ask a question, I think if you guys want to unmute your mic there and give Sophie your question.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody.
Okay, here we go.
Okay, you guys are unmuted. Oh, no, you guys, I think we're both trying to unmute it. Okay, I will let Deb unmute the mic and then we can have a question.
There you go. Okay, go ahead, James. What location have you found to be in the most...
Because you guys came in a bit late. Oh, maybe we have issues hearing you guys. I don't know if you guys are trying to talk to us, but you can always message in the chat option in the Google Hangout thing, the top left blue corner, and we can get your question there. Hey, everybody.
Okay, so you can't hear us at all? No, they can't hear us. Okay, where do I go?
So maybe while you guys ask your question, we'll just go to Miss. We will go to Deanna Hubble's class, and then you guys will come back to you and make sure that everything's all sorted out. So we'll just go to Miss Hubble's class. If you guys want to unmute your mic, I believe we had an issue earlier, but just make sure we do it. Can you guys hear us okay?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. You guys want to ask a question?
Can you hear us?
Yes, it's all good.
Go ahead.
How can you help solve the water problem?
Well, there's a lot of different levels that you can help solve the water problem. So I think a lot of it comes down to initially personal choices. So whether that's, taking a shower a little bit shorter, making sure when you're brushing your teeth that, you start to brush and you don't leave the water running for the whole time, or making sure there's a lot of products that you wouldn't think, like a hamburger uses like 2,000 gallons of water to make. And so, you cutting down on using and eating these really water intensive products, a pair of blue jeans, it's insane how much water it takes to make all these things. So just being more conscious of the products that we're buying, the foods that we're consuming, and the water that all of that takes is a great way to start. And then you can always get more involved with spreading the word of the water crisis. And, down the road, we need so many more hydrologists in universities to go on to become, the future water leaders. So there's heaps of opportunities.
Awesome. So we'll try to go back to Miss Lumley's class from Sarnia. Hi, Hello,
I think we've
guys.
got it working now. Does it work now?
Your mic's unmuted, but I don't know if we can still hear you.
That's
If not, you guys can always ask the question in the corner.
Yeah, we can't.
Yeah, I think we're still having issues with sound on your end. So if you guys want to try asking a question through the chat, we can we can see it from here and we can relay it to Sophie.
We just can't see the chat.
So we'll go back to Mr. Drezik's classroom. They had another question, they said, and then we'll get some of the questions on YouTube as well. If you guys want to unmute your mic, you have the floor.
Come and show me, Owen.
So our announcements just came out over our loudspeaker here, but we do have a question. Of course, the time. Oh, they're done. They're good. Perfect timing.
Okay, we can't ask her a question.
Can technology be used to convert salt water to fresh water in order to achieve sustainability?
Yeah, great question. So desalination is a big thing, converting salt water to fresh water for drinking use. Unfortunately, right now, the technology that we have to do that is very, very, very energy intensive. So it just requires a lot of fossil fuels and a lot of energy to get that salt out of the water. And so for many communities, it's not the most sustainable option because of the extremely high operating costs to keep it running. Even so, I live in Australia right now, and it's a very financially secure country, very developed, and even they have a lot of their desalination plants that are actually hibernating right now. They're just not running because they are so expensive to run. So we need technology to speed up the desalination process and come up with alternatives that are probably less energy intensive, because it's not really a sustainable path forward, at least with the technology that we have right now.
There we go.
Good question there. So we have a couple of questions coming in from YouTube. One, Jennifer wants to know, what are your plans to make water more accessible to people in remote locations?
Yeah, so to make water more accessible right now, AquaAid, the company that I started, we work with communities to help design water filtration solutions, all with materials made from around people's homes. So we do a lot with like biosand filters. So basically a biosand filter is you collect different layers of rocks all the way down to sand, and you layer them on top of each other. Then you can pour the water through, and basically the rock and sand acts like a filter and stops all the bacteria. So these are really simple technologies. They're not cutting edge or, any exciting new design awards here, but the thing is that they work and they last, and they can be owned and maintained by the community, which is really important, because as great as technology is, a lot of the time with these extremely remote communities where it can take, days and days to get to, they're often not going to have the time or the funding to get out and then find the parts to fix the great technology when it breaks, because inevitably even the best designed water filtration solution will break at some point, and the community has to be able to fix it. And so that's why we work with really remote or local sustainable solutions that can be maintained and are also better for the environment.
Sometimes simplicity is key on that end.
Exactly.
So we'll go to some of the other classrooms to see if they have any other questions, because we got a little extra time here. So we can go back to Miss Jenka's class from Toronto. If you guys want to ask a question there, if there's even anyone in that room right now. I don't believe I can see anybody. Okay, why don't we go back to Miss Hubble's class, and you guys can ask another question there. If you guys want to unmute your mic, I don't know how that situation's working on your end, and then we can get your questions.
What? Is that us again?
Oh. Unmute it.
Oh, there we go. It's unmuted there.
Okay. How does the water, how do we run out of water?
When you don't do that. guys don't get it.
So we're, like I initially mentioned with when I showed you the picture of the water cycle, running out of water is not like, it's not on the entire planet Earth. There's no water left. It's that there's no water fit for human consumption. So we can run out of water by basically polluting our water sources, which is a big one. With climate change, one of the issues is we'll have way too much water in certain parts of the world, and then in other parts of the world it's a drought. So right now in Australia, just about 30 minutes north of me, there is massive flooding, but then about an hour south of me, they're experiencing one of the worst droughts in years, and they're having to literally truck in water. So you don't have to worry that, I mean, the water's not all going to disappear from the earth. It's just the water's shifting to places that there's less in some areas, more in others, and often where you need the water is not where it is, and there aren't easy ways to get it.
That's a fair question. So we'll go back to Miss Lemney's class. From Sarnia. If you guys want to ask a question, you guys have the floor. Oh, I believe that you're muted on your end. Couple issues with the mic.
Can you hear us now? Can you hear us now?
Anything?
Yeah, can you? I think we're having a bit of an issue with your mic, guys. Do you want to just double check to make sure it's unmuted?
We sent you a message.
Oh, we're still having issues there. Well, if you guys, there's still the chat option if you guys want to try that. I don't know. It looks like you guys are coming from a phone, so I don't know if that's a hindrance there. You guys can always try on the YouTube Live to ask a question through there too, but we just can't hear what you're saying today. Sorry about that. So Miss Frankajenko's class from Toronto. I don't know if you guys are sitting somewhere where the camera can't hear you, but you guys have the floor if you guys want to ask a question there. Oh, awesome. Okay, let me just unmute your mic. We can't hear what you're saying right now. Oh, it might be muted on your end.
All right, there you go. Sorry about that. So my class had to go on to French. So I have a question. Yes, schedules, sometimes we have to stick to them. My question is, how do you get involved with such great travel? Like, how were you able to go to these destinations in the first place?
Yep, so I started working on private boats, basically as the deckhand, so I was like a janitor. And worked my way up. And so on those boats, we got to go all around the world to some fairly remote places. And in my time off, I would just get out and start talking to people. And this reoccurring issue was water. And I was just really, really shocked by that. And so started sort of using the connections I was making in the yachting community to fundraise. And then we thought I would donate that money to a company working in Nicaragua in this village that I had gotten to know, but no one wanted to go so deep in the jungle, which I understand in some ways because there are so many communities, you know, en route to that community in the jungle that we're all equally in need of water development help. But we were sort of set on this. So that's how it all started, and that's how I get to go to these cool and remote places.
All right, so we're doing pretty good on time, so we can try to go to some classrooms. If we'll go back to Mr. Drezik's classroom if you guys want to have another question. We're doing pretty well on time, so if you guys have one more.
I have one more. Yeah, are there ways that you know that students can get involved? I mean, we look at the Sustainable Development Goals here in the SDGs. Are there ways that you would recommend? Like, let's just say that we're students here in New York in a high school. like how can we do something on a local level to help maybe spread the word? Or do you have, from your experiences, is there something here that where we can make a little bit of impact as opposed to this being just a one day? We don't want really World Water Day. We really want like World Water, year.
I agree. Well, so if you're interested specifically in UN SDGs, they have a really cool program with the Youth Assembly, and that's got sort of year-long networking of improving SDGs. So Goal 6 is access to water, and there's big networks there that you guys can look into that are amazing young people around the world doing the most impactful things on all the sustainable development goals. But then I think part of it is also just talking about it. Sometimes young people just talking about these things when it's not World Water Day and when it's not in the news is such a big and inspiring force, because demonstrating that being young is not a barrier to effective change making, even if you're starting small, even if it's just literally turning off the tap when you're brushing your teeth. Like, it starts there on that personal level and then ripples out, and you can then work your way up to the sustainable jeans, and then the working on Goal 6 and designing your own water filtration solutions. So there's heaps of different ways that you can get involved in local levels. I know in New York specifically, the Surfrider Foundation has a lot of community-based things that are going on for water and the environment. I used to live in New York, so I'm happy to connect further about that if you have any other questions, more detailed.
It's a good question. I think sometimes people don't realize that making a difference can be so simple as, implementing your own life to be part of the change.
Right, exactly.
Especially with a lot of the things that you eat. You don't realize the impact it has because you're not told about the impact. So it's good to have opportunities like this to kind of be aware of your lifestyle and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll go to one more question. We'll have Deanna, Miss Hubble's class, if you guys want to ask one more, and then we can sign off for today and say thank you to Sophie. Let me just make sure the mic's on over there. Hi there.
Hi. Is there any sort of machine that we have already that can help us conserve water?
That can help us conserve water. That would be cool. I don't know of any machine conserving water. Not off the top of my head, but there are lots of very cool machines that are now turning actually vapor in the clouds into drinking water. There's cool machines that are restricting flow of taps and showers and toilets to limit the amount of water that's coming out, so you just don't have this massive flow. Is that what you mean by conserving machines to conserve water?
I think so. Just any kind of machines that would be helping us in our efforts to kind of save the water crisis on the planet there. So we can connect with Mr. Drozik further afterwards, but just to say thank you to Sophie, I'll unmute the mics now, and if you guys want to give Sophie a big thanks as per Explore by the City of Pants tradition, we would love to say goodbye and thank you everybody today. So thank you so much.
Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us, you guys. We'll be stopping